If it looks like I'm presenting from a closet, I sort of am. This is my spare room, which when your wife works in fashion, it ends up taking over the house. So every spare room is full of racks of clothing. There's more on that side that I angled out of view. My name is John McFarlane. I am the co-founder of PlaceOS. Slight change to the lineup today. I'm covering for uh, the others, so I'm going to do a demo as planned on the Concierge interface. Uh, I think this is an important interface because it's really the interface our customers within the organization uses. When we work with large corporates, they have thousands of employees. They all use the employee application, but the customers that purchase from us and have the most interaction with us are more likely to be using the concierge interface. So I'm going to share my screen and just cover each of the major features. There's a lot of features within concierge, so I won't go into a training session of concierge. I'll just cover the highlights. I want to talk about our roadmap, what we're doing next with concierge, and I want to talk about how it fits in with other management interfaces. Um, the and then I'll just open up for questions. So the demo will be quite sharp and to the point, and anyone that has questions just jump in at any time. Geordie from our team that's hosting and monitoring this, he'll just shout out the questions to me as they come in because I'm screen sharing, so I'll be just looking at the interfaces. So Geordie, if you just want to go ahead and do the screen share. You'll see a lot of mirrors there. So I'm going to jump straight into it and get into concierge, but I'll just touch on how the interfaces interact with each other. So we have the employee interface, and I'm looking at one of our templates right now. It's the homepage. The homepage is where all the dynamic information or the real-time information lives. So spaces available immediately, spaces that are perhaps underutilized and are featured for employees to book, both desks and rooms, or favorites that you have starred as a user. So you might have favorite spaces or favorite colleagues, team members that you want to see their location or where they're working today, so you can book spaces near them or book on behalf of them and your team. So that homepage is what we're looking at, and then it has all the other standard features. The more traditional form when you have specific requirements to book a room. So there might be some business logic, some workflows, some rules to make a booking. And that will affect the concierge interface that we're going to go through, because anything you add here in terms of catering, anything you add here in terms of attendees will be reflected on the concierge, who see the list of attendees, see the catering requests, and can approve those, check people in, and even assign assets if you're searching and booking an asset as part of your room booking, for example. So you might need a Cisco WebEx board that is on wheels, and concierge keep it, and you add it to your booking, and they deliver that to the room, and they'll see that, and I'll show you where they see that in a moment. The desk booking, pretty straightforward. Your requirements, the bare minimum being time and date, but you can also add additional things you need, like focus areas or require a locker. Again, this all feeds the info on the concierge side. Group bookings, that will all feed that as well. Car space, you can book a car space as part of your room booking, or you can book one specifically for a car that isn't associated to the room booking. Same with visitors. All of the above you might want to do from a map style interface. So click on the desk, click on the room, and make those bookings. That's the more real-time option. You can do that on a kiosk. You can do that in this web view. You can do this on a native app, anywhere in between, room booking panel perhaps. So these are just very, very common features. PlaceOS as an integration platform can extend beyond this. There's a lot of workflow going on that you don't see, and I want to touch on that at the end as well, because we're all about workflow automation, and increasingly we're leaning into that very heavily, and only providing a user interface element if there needs to be one. And I think where there needs to be one is definitely visually on a floor plan and for management purpose to see what's going on in a concierge. So I'm excited to continue to develop that concierge interface to reflect the things that you need as an interface element, to validate the information that's happening, the invisible user experiences that we're excited about. There's still a need to manage, monitor, and facilitate the space. So that's exactly what Concierge interface is all about. So I'll go through top to bottom, or maybe bottom to top, as we're looking at here. One of the things we've added recently is more detailed reporting. So within Concierge, if you have the right permissions, and I'll show you an example, a live site where you'll see fewer tabs because that particular user account doesn't have access to everything, or they may not be using every feature of Concierge. But typically it's hierarchy of management. So not everyone gets access to reports, for example. And some people, like the kitchen staff, might only get access to catering reports, not the utilization reports. But adding reports is something we've added into here. I'll show you a screenshot of a live system, and the reason I'm showing you a screenshot is it allowed me to blur the sensitive information. Trouble is with an integration platform, to show you anything useful, it's good to show you live sites. But here's an example report of desk utilization. So we're going beyond just the percentage score that you may have seen from us previously. We're doing a lot more breakdowns based on the data that we're collecting from real-time systems and more. So in that flow, I've just clicked on the desk utilization report. This is a live system, so I've tried to make sure there's no sensitive information type, such as users. But you can see we can break it down by users. So that could be a person. It could be total bookings by an individual. That could be also a group, an Active Directory group, or a team. There might be another record of truth for team, which are different to your department. Teams and departments are we're always looking for both because they work differently. For example, you can be part of the marketing team, but you might work with someone from a product team, and we can reference that and see if you're booking in the same area. I mention that because it's such a challenge in most workplaces, knowing the difference between the two, because Active Directory only gives us department. So by user, booking by desks, both the breakdown of total bookings and unique users. So stuff that you're used to seeing in web analytics, right? So the traffic versus unique traffic, that's important. So you know, and these two things in combination, so you can start to see who's coming to the office. Are we getting different people on different days, or are we getting the same people that like to work in this space? And that's an important metric for planning, obviously, for how much space you need. Then the other areas, the average booking by desks, average hours by desk, so individual desks. How are particular desks performing? We could reference that on a map and see, well, why is that particular desk performing slightly better? This one here with the 12 hours. Is that because it's in a desirable location next to the window, or in a quiet space, or the closest to the elevator, so people are going there? And there's another way we can cross-reference with this data. So we might get this data from this hard data from the utilization report, but there's another area I want to talk about where we can look at, well, why is this happening? So this is telling us what's happening, but the why is very important, obviously. So I might want to investigate that. That's giving me a trigger for, like, why is this one performing so well? And I could scroll down and see why is another space performing so poorly. A simple way to do that is with the addition to Concierge that we've added recently, and that's surveys. So right under reports here, we've got surveys. And I'm being careful just to show you things that are not sensitive here. But surveys can be score-based, so you can say, give me a rating. You set the questions, and you set the questions based on triggered groups and trigger actions. So you can send a set of questions to people that have checked into a meeting room, for example, and you can send a different set of questions that you define to people that check into a desk, or you could send a different set of questions to people that didn't check in and just turned up, or didn't check in, didn't cancel their booking, and you don't know what's going on. So you can send all these different questions to find out more information. And that's where you might make a survey based on a desk to work out what's going on with that particular desk or that room. So if that room is underutilized, are we getting low scores on furniture comfort, on air comfort or general comfort? Is it too hot? Is the air conditioning not working? Are there faults in that room? So it gives you a way to start drilling down into the why, all within the same environment, the PlaceOS concierge interface. So that's reports moving into surveys where you can set these questions with the score-based results or multiple choice, is the simplest way of doing it. And you can start collecting some insights. And it takes a person to make that correlation, right? We can talk about AI if you want to in the questions, because it's something we're planning for and working on. But at the moment, the correlation is a person that can say, this hard data is telling me one thing, the utilization from the room by the breakdown we went through. This soft data is telling me why that's happening, and I can add my own experience to that and write a report for the business. And that's the sort of user that is using PlaceOS Concierge, the person that writes those reports. So I'm going to jump back to my second tab here. Sorry for all the tab jumping, but I'm just trying to line things up so I can show you as much as possible. So this is back to the dummy one. This is one I can jump around and not break anything or not show anything sensitive. So other uses are the really common use of just managing all of the other side of the employee app. So monitoring where people have made bookings, so I can interject as the concierge user and make changes, relocate them to another space, edit the booking, add more, see what attendees are part of that booking, whatever I need to do as the facilitator of meeting rooms or desks or anything else in that workplace. We can have the cleaner view, so you can have this as a simple way to see the scheduled cleaning events and check those off. And the breakdown setup time is just for spaces that you need to clean in between bookings. So it adds a buffer to allow that to happen, and that's usually related to catering. If you've delivered catering, you need to collect the plates and clean up that space. And during COVID, we saw a lot more of that cleaning workflow for spaces as well, which is still a request from some of our customers. Then we move into doing things on behalf of users. So we get the same features from the real-time ability to book space. So I can book on behalf of a user and start to see some more information there. The asset management, I'm just whipping through this because we don't need to go through training. I just really wanted this session to be about like what is the concierge interface and what we're doing next with it, and those highlights about the data, the surveys, and the reporting. But to continue on here, the asset manager is, if you remember, I showed on the employee interface, you might add an asset to a room booking. You could perhaps book an asset on its own. This shows you the status of that. So if someone's requested an iPad as part of that booking, it can automatically be approved. You can have a workflow where you have to approve or decline manually. And then we can track automatically if there's asset tags, or again, we can interject. So the concierge interface is all about interjecting from with the workflow automation that's already set or already in place. Because workflow automation is the most important part to seamless user experiences, but you need that visibility and the ability to interject when you need to change from the automation. So that's exactly what we can do here with these features across the board. There's a very common sort of flow here. Everything you can almost consider as an asset, a desk, a car space, or indeed specifically an asset such as an iPad or something else you're loaning out to a space. Then move into catering. So there's two views here, the live view. So that's for the caterers to see requests coming in, to then give that the status of I've accepted that request. It might have been a real-time request from a room. There's also, again, automation. So if you request ahead of time within your booking, certain rooms will have cutoff times built into that logic. This is all editable in the back office interface, which I'll show in a moment. And there's many more things there. So I can manually just say, okay, where this is ready, it's going to be delivered to the room. And then once it's delivered, I come back and mark that off, and that job will be removed from the kitchen queue. And if I go back to the main menu for catering, it's also where you set the available items, which then feeds the employee interface or any other interface tied into this, which includes kiosks and touch panels. and like a room booking panel or in-room audio-visual control panel, or the kiosks on the floor. So this is where you can actually import a menu, so you don't have to add things one at a time. You can download our CSV template and then fill it out, then upload it, and that will give you all the items. Or you can manually add an item one at a time, and you can manage your charge codes in the same way. You can import the codes, so charge codes from like your PeopleSoft or your accounting system that allows. We look up the person who booked the room, added the catering request, and then we can have associated charge codes to that department. So your accounting team knows that sales are spending more internally on catering versus your product development team, which makes sense because they're hosting clients, and then they can start seeing their own trends if that's not the case. So that's quite common in an enterprise workplace. We're just giving you a simple way to manage that, and both the uploading, the management of the items. Once you've uploaded them, you can edit them here as well. You can edit the price, you can edit the options, anything else you need to do. So catering is just a simple approach, and we always make the decision at PlaceOS, how far do we go with any particular feature? We're not a catering management company. We're not a room booking company. We're ultimately an integration platform. So we, in terms of user interface and user experience, we touch on areas if it makes sense for us to touch on it, because we can improve the experience through workflow automation. So, for example, with catering, it makes sense for PlaceOS to be involved in that because we're involved in the room booking, we're involved in automatic check-in and business logic. So if we can continue that seamless experience all the way through to catering, then we'll make the decision to do that. And same with asset management. Anything else we decide to add to the solution, it's all a decision. Like the fundamental guideline for us is, does it improve workflow automation? The word I'm saying over and over again, because that's our point of difference. We're not just a workplace solution. We don't even just provide solutions to workplace alone. So we're not only a workplace application, we're an automation platform, and these are the visual elements that help improve the automation workflows, and the visual feedback that lives in Concierge, so you know what's happening and you can manage things all from one interface. Visitors, so back in that workflow where you add if you're booking a room and you add an external attendee, well, then they will automatically appear on the list of attendees on the visitor management tab for the concierge employee to monitor and check people in automatically or manually. I should say, if we can have automatic check-in or self-check-in from the visitor, or again, it's about when to interject. So the concierge might see someone arrive and greet them in person and have that personal experience, and then the visitor doesn't have to touch anything, and we can check them in here, and then the host gets notified. Or I could manually email the host. So you can see here, I can click on that button to email the host, or I can check in each visitor manually if need be. So then that will trigger the workflow to the host. Indeed, if you do add a visitor via the workplace application, the external visitor will receive an email with a QR code, so they can scan into the building if need be, so we can integrate with the building access control system. So it can be completely automatic. So this will just be about seeing when people are checked in, so we grayed out, so the concierge can at least view who's checked in, but then manually take over if and when needed, which is the theme for most of these tabs I'm going through. Desks, similar to assets, because a desk and an asset, we can sort of manage them and think of them in the same way, and the same as car space management. This interface allows us to manage the desks, so we can say, well, let's take these desks off the booking ability manually. So there might be reasons for that, such as events where you don't want those people sitting at those desks, or services, or this was quite common during COVID to say, well, today we're going to run just every second desk. You could do that manually if you wanted to, take every second desk off the booking form. You can script that, or you can just import the desks as you need to. It's where you reference the desk ID, which is really important for these workflows and when we trigger the availability of desks. It's where we add the features. So you might add a feature to a desk, so then you can manually come in here and say what that feature is. So the employee can filter by that feature. So you can see here there's dual monitor, and I can remove single monitor. And I can also get the QR code for the desk. So if you have a manual check-in process, or maybe as a backup, let's talk about desk check-in for a second. There's many ways to do desk check-in. As an integration platform, we can choose the best method for the scenario or leverage what you might already have. So an example of what you might already have is a network switch and a dock. So you might be docking, particularly these dual monitor desks. You might dock via USB-C. We see the network activity on that dock via the network switch and can map the Cisco or other network switch port number to the desk ID. So then we know someone's docked their laptop, therefore someone's there. But you might also want to have the QR code in case people aren't docking their laptop. So it's like the lowest barrier to entry for the technology, but the highest barrier to entry for the user because they have to do something. There's been a project we did at Suncorp was interesting that they custom built some power switching. So you have to manually check into a desk, and if you don't have power at that desk. So that was a great way of using the forcing people to use the higher barrier to entry user experience, but it was a lower barrier to entry technology rollout. So it's always a compromise, right? Like we could seamlessly check people in if we add more technology, such as desk sensors, Wi-Fi density that can track people down to 6-foot radius, but that's not always available for us. So by default, every desk will have a QR code if you use it or not, and that can be used on the employee application to scan and check into a desk. So I can go into my desk. I think we have it in the profile here. We can then there's no check-in on my dummy interface, but there's a QR code section where you can just scan, or you can just use your camera, right? You don't need to open a PlaceOS interface to do so. I'll continue down. The staff directory is just handy for the concierge to have, so that's in there. What we can do that's unique is actually locate those users on the network. At least on a floor level, if we're integrated into access control, so we know where they've swiped in. It can be on a zone level if we're integrated into the Wi-Fi, such as Cisco Spaces or Meraki or any of the other intelligent Wi-Fi. Or if they're checked into a desk, we can see their desk location. So we can reference the location, and you can see here I can actually toggle between on-site people only or the entire directory. So for concierge that are working in a building site, obviously that's beneficial because they can just have the list of people there today, which is a quick way to see if someone's there when a visitor's arriving to check with them. So the other features I won't go into too much more details. The reports I showed you screenshots. This is just where you start with those reports in the first place. The catering reports is all just about the quantities of the food ordered and the summary of the charge codes. And the rooms and the desks are the starting point where you just select the areas you're interested in, the times that you're interested in, and then it will generate the reports similar to what we saw before, but with more detail than what we saw before. So I'll end it there and just open up. Sorry, before I do, actually, one more thing I wanted to show was continuing that thought on how do the interfaces interact with each other. We had the employee application. That's for the average user of the average employee within the workplace. We have the concierge. That's viewing what's happening via the employee interface, interjecting when they need to provide a customer experience or do things manually or make changes to the workflow automation that's set. And then we have the IT interface, what we call PlaceOS back office, and that shows us all of the real-time integrations, shows us what we're connected to, and allows us to set triggers and manage things as a deployment. So that's the really IT interface. And I'm just looking at a live system here, looking at a particular room that has a backnet connector. So that's the air conditioning we're connecting to. It's got lighting integration, and it is integrating into Cisco devices. And I know from this project that this is giving us the air conditioning network is giving us air quality sensors. The lighting is something we can trigger based on actions I'll show in a minute, and the Cisco gear is something we can receive information from, people count. So we use that for monitoring real time usage of space, and also control the video conference in that space. And triggers, it allows them to take any of those integrations and say, when this particular action happens, trigger something. So I can see here that they've got some lighting off triggers, right? So when from the title of this trigger, it's saying when the Cisco touch panel is touched, turn the lights to a specific state. So this is the way to start building recipes of logic automation. And once they're built in this sort of low code environment, they can be edited, and that can include business logic, automation, anything else. The possibilities are any input to any output. So it always is interesting to us what our customers do with this. So they're the three main interfaces with a focus on Concierge.